Hey guys, UX here. Welcome back to the video, and today I'm going to be discussing my 5 most important tips if you're going to first year uni or college. So for everybody who they're freshmen and they're about to go to the first semester in university or college, and my 5 biggest tips. First up, I want to go over who I am and uh, how I've experienced all this already and how I know these. So I did 2 years in photonics, and yeah, so photonics is a subset of engineering, and I've already finished 2 years. I would have done 2 more years, but I didn't like the program, so I swapped out. But 2 years in photonics, which is not just normal engineering, but extra courses on top of that. And so we basically got like no electives, and we just only did hard engineering courses, and that's about it. So it was quite intense, and this is how I got through it, even through like online learning and everything. First up, I want to go over the 5 types of classes that I had, and then anybody else in like engineering should be able to relate. If you're not engineering, you can still use the same tips. They won't relate as closely with each class. So the 5 courses I had were programming. So this was like coding, um, where we would just write code basically, and then the second class or second type of class I should say we had was like raw physics. Can I? Oh, we want bigger than that for text. Raw physics. Okay, so this is like I don't know this is like big labs. So big labs. Um, and you basically just had like I don't know how to explain it. You basically had like labs were like 50% of your grade, or like really harsh tests. It was just like raw physics. It wasn't like anything specific. It was just like right in there physics. And then past that, we have what we call specific physics, or just like specific science classes. So specific science classes. And so what this was, so I was in photonics. This was generally our photonics classes. So this for us, it's like optics. Um, and generally, it's the same thing as the big boy science classes, but they are easier. Okay. So if you're going into a program like this for engineering or something, and you have like a specific type of science they're also studying, I promise you the raw physics class, the one that has like 300 students in it if you're in uni, or the one that's like more general physics, I guess, if you're in college, that one is going to be tougher. And then this one, because it's so specific, it's generally easier, I find, as the grading is more lenient. So like these ones generally have like less students per class. So even though I was in uni, these classes only had like 30 to 50 people first year compared to like the 300 plus I had in raw physics, my one physics class, let alone the other versions of the same physics class. So those are easier. And so far the order for how easy they were for me, it was like raw physics and specific science, and then coding was the easiest. For those who don't know me, I do a lot of coding and I'm like okay at math. So for me, by far the easiest was coding, and then all like the etc. similar to coding stuff like automation simulation courses. And then after that, yeah, I struggled a bit with the science, but we'll go over how I got past that. And I ended up actually getting like high 90s in some of my science courses. Next up, speaking about math, we've got the math class, okay? Math, the one thing everybody hates. I promise you, if you don't hate it now, you will hate it. And this is by far the hardest class, okay? This is maximum difficulty class. This is where you're going to be putting most of your effort. This is the class where, unless you're a math major, unless you really have to, you only take, okay, for general math courses, you take one, okay, per semester, okay? You don't take more than one per semester, otherwise you get overloaded with stuff, all right? So if you're taking like specific science, I think if you're taking like specific stuff like graph theory and stuff like that, you can take like multiple because then you're already like so far into the math domain that it's not as bad. But when you're still taking like calculus and linear algebra and stuff, I mean, you take one per semester because those are big boy classes. Those are, once again, 300-person classes. Pro tip, if your class has several hundred people in it, or if you're in college where everything is forced into smaller classes, if there's like multiple copies of the exact same course, just at different time slots, so the combined amount of people taking a course is in the hundreds, right? Per semester, it's probably going to be a harder class just because they're going to grade harsher. That's just how it is. Next up, the last type of class we had, okay, this is going to be the etc. category. So these are your electives. If you have electives, if you don't have electives like me, this was like automation and let me make this bigger. This is like automation and simulation. Okay, so we have like an automation simulation class. We also had a few other courses. And we had like a second programming. We had like a second version of this optics course, but it was easier. So even easier than this, which is already way easier than the hard science, stuff like that. Okay, so the five types of classes that I could find in my program. And you'll probably be able to identify no matter what program you're in. I'm sure that if you're taking about 5 courses per semester, there's going to be roughly 5 different like domains of courses. And I think it's really important to categorize each of these because generally they'll follow suit with difficulty and I guess how much effort you have to put into them. So for me, these raw physics classes were very difficult, so I had to put a lot of effort, okay? These were a ton of effort every week, and just knowing which classes were in this category, I could immediately put a lot of effort into them, which I guess snowballed into them being a lot easier throughout the course of the semester. Still my most difficult course, but they were a lot easier over the course of the semester compared to if I hadn't put in that effort. Now that we're done going over how to categorize your courses, now what to do with those, okay? So first step, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to focus on your hardest course. So every semester you're going to have one course that's just going to be harder than the rest, all right? One course, I promise you, it's going to be harder than the rest. That's just how it is. That's just, I mean, that's just what you do. You have one course harder than the rest and you focus on it. Otherwise, you're going to get completely stomped by it. All right. Step number 2, this is the second tip, and it's going to be very important here. You want to work on stuff at the same time, okay? So this leads into tip number 3. So I'll go back over tip number 2 in a second here, but this also leads into tip number 3, which is know your classmates, okay? So these tie in together here. First off, you want to know your classmates because a lot of the courses, whether in college or in uni, there's going to be really harsh curve grading, okay? For those who don't know what curve grading is because you come from high school and you have curve grading is essentially if everybody does bad, nobody does bad. And if everybody does good, nobody does good. So basically they take everybody's grades at the end and then they apply them onto a bell curve around what is supposed to be the median or average grade for that class. And so that's how it is. Essentially, only a few people are limited to being at the top of the class. If everybody's at the top of the class, well, everybody gets pushed down, right? So if every single person in the class is getting high 90s, well, then everybody's going to get pushed down to like 70s or whatever your grading scheme is. If you're going 50 to 100 for a passing grade, then it's generally going to be about 70, 75. And so if everybody's hitting high 90s, well, boom, everybody's doing low 70s now, which feels horrible, but you need to know this. So you got to know your classmates, right? Next up was work on stuff at the same time. Me and I guess the boys, you can call it, we had this rough physics class all at the same time. And so what we do is they were all due the same day, okay? Because we're all in the same class, all our stuff was due the same day. You know what that means? It means you type up your lab reports. I don't know how to lab reports at the same time, okay? Now what time is that going to be? Does anybody know? Does anybody know? Do you want to guess what time that is? That is actually going to be starting at 2 a.m. or midnight, depending. So you can also do like 12 a.m., I guess it would be. Before it's due, okay? Before it's due. Um, before it's due. All right, so you want to do it these times late at night, the night before it's due. So us, it was due at about 8 a.m. Now, I had about an hour travel time to get there, so I had to be done and printed by around 7 a.m. At the furthest. So we'd get started at this time, and then we work until let's say like 5 a.m. Okay, and then sleep for 30 minutes. 30 minutes of sleep. All right, just like that. And then when you're done that sleep, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, that's just how it is on, for us, it was I believe it was Thursday. So every Thursday, this is just, I mean, we had Mondays and Thursdays, right? So every Monday or Thursday, we'd just not get sleep, and that's just how it was. And then, yeah, so we'd sleep for that much, and then you get ready for school. So you'd head off to school. which for me was taking the bus, for other people was driving to school, whatever. And so that leads into this again, work on stuff at the same time. You want to work at the same time for a very specific reason, because if you have any questions, instead of having to email the prof and waiting like 2 or 3 days to get a response, it's very simple. Some other student knows, and if another student doesn't know, this brings us back to curve grading. If everybody fucks up the same question, technically nobody fucked it up. That's just how it is. So if everybody gets the same question, or if everybody tanks the same question on a test or something, nobody tanks that question, okay? No one loses out on those points because everything gets curved. So you always gotta keep in mind, if you want an average grade, you do like everybody else. If you want to do above average, you gotta make sure you step above everybody else, okay? Sometimes that means pushing other people down, but you do what you do when it comes to grading, and everybody knows that. So no one holds it against you. Don't worry about it. Sometimes that looks like not helping people who you don't know. If someone asks you for help with something, you don't know them, you've already finished that project, you already have a hand in, it's due tomorrow morning or something. I don't want to lose 4 hours of sleep to help this random guy I don't know. Fuck you. So yeah, you just want to you want to know your classmates, you want to get the boys. That leads into another example I want to show you of knowing your classmates. So we had a lot of team projects this past COVID years, right? These past year and a half, whatever, of COVID. We had a lot, and I mean a lot of team projects in basically every class. And I was really good at coding, okay? I love coding, all right? This is my heart here. I love coding. It's really easy for me. So what we did is we'd have teams of three. Okay, teams of three for both of these. So I would team with the exact same people, and I would work on the coding thing, and they would do the physics thing. And so we both get a good grade on both classes while only having to work on what we're good at. Okay, so all my friends I was teaming with, one of them was real fucking good at physics, okay, and the other one was real fucking good at math. Okay, we got this trio going, so no matter what class we had, no matter what test we're prepping for, no matter whatever, okay, we always had someone who knew what was up. And when you're doing online classes, this brings us to the next point. You want to have at least one person, one contact who's good at every class, okay? That's because you're going to have tests in every class. And if you're online, I'm going back into online this fall as well. It's very simple. That one guy knows the answers, and so if you don't know them, you hit him up. Hey man, I don't know the answer for this question. This is the question. Send him a screenshot of that shit. Now your school might be trying to enforce some sort of I don't know what kind of system to prevent you from cheating. I promise you, there's a way around it. There just is. There always is a way around it. Now, of course, this video is for people in uni. If you're in high school, this works similarly. If you've got friends, but I guess most people watching this are probably prepping for uni. Next up, we've got very important. This is in person or online, specifically online, because a lot of people don't do it. It's called showing up, okay? If you don't show up, this is what's going to happen, okay? So if you decide that you don't want to show up, oh, whoa, 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 what's going on here with this? There we go. If you decide you don't want to show up, you know what that means to your prof? You know what your prof hears? I want harsher grading. Okay, that's what your prof hears, all right? And you don't actually want your prof to grade you harsher, okay? You don't want lower grades for no reason. So make sure you show up, okay? Really, really important to show up here. And my last tip, this is arguably the most important to making sure that you get good grades here. This is know what your teacher, your prof, I guess, wants, okay? Knowing what your prof wants. This is very simple. For labs, okay, so for my big boy science class here, the big class here, this one had like 50% of your grade or 60% or whatever was just raw labs, okay? It's not just about, it's not always your prof, it can also be your TA, okay, your teacher's assistant if you're in uni and you have a TA grading your stuff. Because what the TA wants is not the same as what's on the paper, okay? It's just not the same. The paper, all right, paper here, and what the TA wants, this is not the same, all right? This is not the same, all right? Um, as if the paper says, I want it in this format, but your TA actually wants it in a different format. If your TA is grading you, I don't give a fuck what the paper says. You're doing what the TA wants, okay? Similarly, if your prof is grading you, I don't give a fuck what the paper wants. Do what your prof wants, all right? Because at the end of the day, if you do 100% of what the paper asks, all right, you only get 50% of the grade. All right. If you do 100% of what the prof asks, you get 100% of the grade. Very simple. If you only do the paper asks, your prof has to pass you. That doesn't mean they have to give you a good grade. Your GPA is going to hate you for this. So if you make sure to do what the prof asks, you get 100% of the grade. You get all your points in. It's very simple. Your GPA, like your GPA, GPA. All right, your GPA is gonna fucking skyrocket. I promise you. All right. And don't forget, boys, we always put the X and Y here. Don't forget it. And make sure if you're in uni or college, your X's, when you're putting them on graphs like this, it's a normal X. But when you put it in an equation, so if you do like 5x, X, you put the little hook, baby. It's a variable, you put the hook. All right, don't forget it. Anyways, that's been my top 5 tips and strategy, or I guess general tips and tricks and strategies for getting past freshman year in university or college. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I'll make sure to get back to all of them. And if you have any other university or college related questions, also ask those. Hope maybe I can make a video compilation out of all of them and answer some of the questions. Anyways, that's been it. I've got nothing else for you. See ya.